Hey everybody, it's your boy Doc Williams, and today we're going to be talking about how to build your very own brand and what that has to do with your app creation. So come with me. Again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon, evening, depends where you're watching and what day you're watching this from. If you're here live, make sure you do hashtag live in the comment section down below. And if you're watching it on replay, make sure you do hashtag replay. Today, we have a special guest. We're going to be talking about how to build your own brand and what that has to do with building your app, really building out that idea so you can bring it to market. So we have a special guest coming up with right now. First of all, Thomas, how are we doing today?
I'm great. I was eyeing your merch. I think I'm gonna pick up one of those shirts. Build with me. I
Oh,
think I'll start repping that shirt pretty soon.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, Thomas, first of all, we want to say thank you so much for joining us, being here. Tell the good people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Thomas Coiner. I'm just an entrepreneur at heart. I've always built things. I've always built my own side hustles, my own wedding videography businesses, my own websites, merch stores, everything you could think of. I've always wanted to build stuff. Even when holding salary jobs, marketing director, corner offices, that would never satisfy my palette. I'd always like to build things that are my own. So yeah, long story short, I turned one of my side hustles into a full-fledged sports media enterprise, where we are the only people that connect college fans to professional athletes, and that's our wedge into the sports media market. And we're starting to really get traction, get stickiness, get users, and we wouldn't be here today without low code, no code technology.
I love it, man. Okay, so that seems wow, always doing different things. Now you ended up in the sports arena. That's a lot of stuff right there. Tell me, how did you end up in the sports arena? Was it just because you're a passionate fan? You saw something like missing in the industry? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I actually I'm not from the South. I'm starting to get my Southern drawl, though. I'm starting to slow my words down and just be slower about things. But I'm from Denver, Colorado, big professional teams fan. Then I decided to go to University of Alabama, and I picked that for incredible documentary filmmaking studies there. They have an incredible program. I didn't even know a lick about SEC football or who Nick Saban was or anything, and then I fell right into it, fell in love with it, and then sure enough, I after college I went into the ad agency world, and it was just by pure luck I selected working at a sports ad agency where we built that entire agency from the ground up on the marketing side. So I was really the first content guru that came on board, and we grew that into a national reputable sports ad agency where we were working for SEC, NCAA, Hibbett Sports, US Open, USGA Championship, all of this and ecosystem of sports. It's a really tiny industry if you actually look at it from the inside. So it's just a great opportunity to tap into the ecosystem there. And then from that point on, it was just like I've had the side hustle idea of wanting to connect these dots, and I was already fully integrated into the industry, which really helped a lot. Hey, Doc, I lost your audio.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
I was coughing, and I was like, you know what? I cannot ruin this. But as we're going to be going into this,
yeah.
this is where it's turning into. So a lot of people might see this like, okay, Thomas, you had a great idea. Now you have this going on. How did it get to this point? Could you
Yeah,
kind of go into that?
absolutely. So, quite actually, like this is very much my story is very progressive when it comes to no code platforms, as well as just like leveraging what's out there to get your product to your potential users as fast as possible. It literally started with myself internally. I created a spreadsheet. I was scraping like ESPN. I'm like, where are my Alabama players now? Where are they playing in the NFL? Right? Like, I get Derrick Henry, I get Mac Jones and Tua, like the stars, but there's 73 Alabama guys in the NFL right now, and I want to keep up with my 6 guys in the NBA. Like, I literally created a spreadsheet. And with that spreadsheet, my very first next thing is getting that in front of the users was taking Google Sheets to Webflow, right? Just a quick direct sync using automation tool, Zapier, Integromat Make, literally just that bridge to just be able to get something out there, right? And sure enough, it worked. So like I turned this database that I was scraping content on, and I went from the database to Webflow, which you see here. We use Webflow as our landing platform, our landing pages, our marketing pages. Most of our actual product is on the mobile app itself and social media channels. But what you see here is literally was just the beginning of ProU, was our website, which it really realistically should be for a lot of people. And we went straight to the users, right? Like we were posting on Reddits, leveraging Twitter, like literally leveraging free direct paths to our potential audience. And sure enough, it worked. I vividly remember in season of 2020, in football season in November, I looked at my Google Analytics. I'm like, we had 30 something thousand website views, unique visitors. Obviously, people care about this. So I literally took that one number of traction, that one piece of traction, not assumptions, but I took that piece of traction and I applied for an accelerator program here locally in Alabama. And that really opened the door for me to dedicate more time to it, to listen to the users. And then they clearly wanted a mobile app from what they were telling us. And so then we really started to create the platform in a mobile app experience.
I love it, man. I love it. Okay, so before we go on, first of all, people are saying, hey, we see HL Facts, so thanks so much for being here. By the way, Lawrence is saying, this is dope. Taking notes, I have an idea, so need to listen in. Thank you so much for being here. You've come to the right place, and Thomas's story, this is great. So we're going to dive in just a little bit more.
Yeah, and just real quick, anyone that wants to connect with me personally, I'm always open, right? So it's either on every social channel, LinkedIn, but also thomas@pro-u.com.
Love it. And we're going to put that in the comment section description as well to connect with Thomas. Thank you. Thank you for being for this generosity. You mentioned spreadsheets, Webflow. So this was the very beginning, starting there. Now, I wanted, and so people listening.
I still do want to be very clear. I don't know how to write code, right? Like I'm a technical founder that doesn't know how to write code. Think about that. Because if you look at the root of it, being a technical founder is being able to build your product. And I can do that without knowing, how to write Flutter, even though we're apps in Flutter, without having to know Java, without having to know any of this. So just a preference for everyone that's like a little bit timid on all of that. Like quite literally, like I've built this thing without writing lines of code. But yeah, keep going.
No, this is great. That's aspirational, and everyone that's like, hey, I can't. This is wonderful. Tell me a little bit about, you were saying your traction going to Reddit, talking to different ones. Talk me through, okay, so you have this idea, you want to get in front of more people. What were you saying when you were trying to reach those people? A lot of people get stuck right there. Like they're like, I have no audience. So could you explain what's the value prop? Why were you talking to them? How,
Yeah, I'd say the easiest way is just like finding them through where they're already having the conversation. So literally separate yourself from your product. Pretend you don't know anything about ProU sports, or you don't know anything about low code, no code technology, right? For you, Doc. Like inbound marketing is everything. And just like going and find that piece of conversation already taking place. Like quite literally on Reddit, I would just attack and like literally scour. And like the second someone is having a conversation about, hey, here's the list of colleges ranked by the most players in the NFL or the most players in the NBA, I would literally just attack that conversation, right? So saying like, hey, yeah, I built this whole platform where it's immediately up to date, right? Because in the current ecosystem, when I was building this, you'd just see like local news companies like post an article, but within 3 weeks it'd be outdated because it wasn't like real-time data and all that. So quite frankly, I would just attack the conversation there because everybody's asking this question on like Quora or Facebook groups or Twitter or Reddit's. Like the world is so connected with the internet right now that you could go and just quite literally just start typing and searching in these on all of these platforms, not your name, not like anything where you're trying to get to, but like quite frankly, like the problem you're solving, right? So like I would literally scour Reddit for college in the NFL or Auburn in the NFL or UNC in NBA. And I would just attack that conversation and listen to them and promote my content. And it just kind of works. Like you get feedback from them, right? Like literally ask them, what do you like? What do you want? What do you need? That really helped us a lot early on.
Love it. So if I'm hearing this correctly, it sounds a lot more, you're just trying to be helpful. You're trying to listen to real conversation, just be a real person.
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, one of the best things you could do also, like if you're also attacking like a market that is kind of already established, is just like look at the reviews. Go to app stores of your competitor and be like, read the like the 3 4 stars that want something like this but are missing a glaring feature or a glaring solution to their problem. And then like that's how you could also kind of be agile enough in your product features to really, get your wedge into the market as well too.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. In the chat, let us know. What are you thinking? I'm seeing people are saying this is great. Oh, okay. I'll get to your, okay, I got Twitter questions. All right, we'll put that off into a second. Oh, okay. So this is topical. Someone's saying, was it hard to get into an accelerator? What was the process? How many did you apply
I
to?
love accelerators. So another disclaimer, I'm all about disclaimers today. Actually, before I started Pro U Sports Live, I actually worked for an accelerator. I worked for one of the more prestigious ones called Techstars. I really helped the Alabama Energy Tech Accelerator here in Alabama get off its feet off the ground. So I had a really front row seat to how accelerators work at one of the most prestigious ones in the world. It's really like Y Combinator, Techstars on the national, international level, and then like you have these more smaller ones too. So really, kind of just like these accelerators, really you need to find the one that fits you, right? Fits your current place, you as a founder. Quite frankly, I did not. I didn't do Techstars. I did a local one here in Birmingham, Alabama, where they were smaller, but also pretty reputable and prestigious. They flushed us with capital, a place to work out of, mentorship for 3 months. Very typical of every accelerator out there. Shout out to the Velocity Accelerator. But quite frankly, they were just a little bit smaller, and they allowed more companies to come in earlier on the earlier side of traction, which is great. So realistically, you have to have two things as a founder, right? Like they have to believe in, or I'm sorry, to get into an accelerator, they have to believe in the market opportunity and you as a founder, right? So, hey Doc, I'm so sorry. You there? Yeah. So
I'm
I
good.
just want to
I'm
make
good.
sure my internet didn't cut out.
Yeah.
So quite frankly, you just have to, I mean, accelerators aren't for everyone, but like they have to believe in you essentially. And you have to show them that. And what I showed them when I applied is like, hey, clearly people want this product. We had 30,000 monthly visitors on our website. Imagine what we could do if like we actually had a user system and people could log in and favorite their athletes. We didn't even have that yet. It was literally just a landing page with data on it. And then so we really got in particularly because that early sign of traction. But again, like every accelerator is different. Every program manager is different of accelerators. Sometimes they believe purely in the founder and they want to latch onto that person because they think that they can execute. I'm the biggest believer in you need to separate passion from execution. So many entrepreneurs out there have passion, shower thoughts, right? Like, oh, this is the best idea ever. I'm going to blow this up. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's all about execution, right? Like obviously latch on to an awesome idea and like solve a real world problem that is obviously tied to revenue in some form or fashion, but it also comes down to execution, right? Like it don't matter if you don't do it. Like if you don't get your product out, it doesn't matter if you go through a whole accelerator and don't build something at the end, right? Like you have to. It's all about execution, and accelerators are great for that. But it also comes down to the person themselves. Can they actually execute? Can you actually move as fast as lightning? So
I love it. What was the biggest aha moment during the accelerator? Maybe you thought it was going to be one way, and then by the end of it, you're like, "Wow, this
you
is
know
what I
what
was
it was?
missing."
It was
What?
crazy. It's because it was low code technology. So many times it just frustrates me so much. So you get flushed with capital on so many accelerators or grants or even private, like we don't even have to say accelerators. We could just say pre-seed, right? Like an angel investor, your own money. Yeah, this could be super small, right? We could be talking about like $300 of your own money to get something going. But the biggest thing with accelerators that was the biggest mishap on so many people is they get flushed with capital. So like for us, we got flushed with $50,000. People will take that money, say like, oh, I think I need a mobile app. They'll go straight to like an ad age or a tech agency or a development agency or offshore or Upwork and blow 20, 30, 40, all $50,000 on their first version of their mobile app or their website or their SaaS platform or something. And guess what? They didn't listen to their customers. They blew all their money. It took forever. It didn't work, right? And so like literally I knew this going in, and we leveraged no code technology, and we built our entire mobile app in like 8 weeks, which is just phenomenal on a no code platform. Obviously, a lot of y'all know Adalo, which is one of the fastest ways you could get a mobile app into the market, in my opinion. Which is just a great platform for us at the right time, at the right moment of what we needed it for. And we beta tested quickly, and we straight up attacked the NFL draft. It was that was our aha moment in the accelerator of like, oh, like actual strangers are downloading our app, that like we didn't even pay for, like organic marketing, like organic needs. That was incredible. So we actually had our first 1,000 users within a month of being on the App Store, and 1,500 users by the time the accelerator was closed.
That is crazy. Okay, this is a great, thank you. This is just great insight. So
Thank
using
you.
this,
I love a good Wednesday morning conversation about no code. Let's go.
Tell me about so you were building with Adalo. So you mentioned you got 1,000 users. Was that your benchmark to be like, okay, now we have something. Now
Yeah,
we have data. Is it, yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
But
keep going.
yeah, no, it definitely comes at costs, right? Like you have to understand that users aren't everything. Ratings, like you have to have a good working product. So it's like stickiness, ratings, users, like that all matters with mobile apps, right? So like, yeah, I could go get 1,000 users, but if they don't ever come back because they hated their experience, that 1,000 users was just a waste and actually not good traction.
Yeah.
So it's just
Yeah.
like like a Venn diagram, and in the middle is like you got something, right? Like it's user growth, it's stickiness, it's actual performance, I guess you could say. So we were able to hit all that partly because I have UI UX design background. Like I knew how to build like websites on Webflow, which helped a lot. I worked for high growth startups, so I knew how to get users, right? Like I literally helped now valued at $1 billion company. I was the very first marketer for them for a year. Like I helped them get their first thousands of users, right? Like by literally like scraping and hacking like apartments.com and getting our product on there and getting kicked off. So like I knew that like growth above all else was huge. But yeah, I mean, quite frankly, you just have to understand that it's not just users, but we really wanted that 1,000 users, right? Like that was like our goal going in. Like you have to have a stretch goal, KPI stretch goal, right? Like or not, or you're just going to get satisfied on like 50 users. Like obviously we knew we weren't going to hit 1,000 users, but like that's what I wanted. And actually we worked our butts off. Our interns were messaging all these influencers to help us, and like we got it. Like it was awesome.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. That's great to hear. Okay, so walk me through. So how once you hit and got that many on Adalo, what were some of the things that you were now bottlenecking, and then you had to decide, hey, we're going to stay with Adalo or we're going to go to another
Yeah.
platform? What was some of the restrictions, and then when did you decide to go to a different platform?
Yeah, there are a few moments where we just knew we were growing beyond what we needed with Adalo. And I'm a big Adalo fan. I just truly am. Like it helped us get where we are. Like it's a part of our story, right? Um, I think a great example, like I don't know if this isn't a slant on anything, but like a great example was like sometimes you can't get into like your most prestigious school, like Harvard or UNC or whatever, and sometimes you have to go take gen ed somewhere, to get going on your first parts of college. That felt like our Adalo trip, right?
Yeah.
And it was great. Like we learned so much, and we got our first users. But quite frankly, we needed more tracking of our users. Like I really, really wanted to like slap this thing on Google Analytics and track their conversions in the app even much more granular, because our product needs that. Our product isn't directly tied to transactions. Our product is a consumer sports leisure app, right? Like it's literally the porcelain throne type of app where it's just leisure scrolling, right? We needed to know how much stickiness was in the app. So we really needed the power of Firebase, that authentication system, being able to track our users better on conversions, on ad impressions, even more granular. And obviously revenue cat was a big part of why it's still on our roadmap, but it was a big part of why we decided to go with Flutterflow, where we're really excited about building on. And we could obviously talk about that, but quite frankly, it was user systems, it was performance, being able to just like store everything in Firestore. It was just incredibly fast. because we did get some 1-star reviews of saying, like it would take 30 seconds to load stuff, but that wasn't necessarily Adala's fault as much as like maybe I built it poorly. Maybe the structuring of custom functions and all that. Like quite frankly, it was just kind of time to do a refresh anyways, because we just like we stacked. It was like pancakes, right? We were just stacking features and features on top of each other. And we're like, wait, what do we actually have here? So it's kind of nice to do a refresh as well too in the off season.
I love it. There's a couple things that I want to key in on because this is awesome to hear. And then I got more questions about platforms that you love. And I love how you were saying, well, you hit your goal of 1,000, and then you looked at, hey, some of the things, maybe speed or different things that you need. That's really big because we hear a lot of people on the channel and we get emails where they're just like, hey, I want to go to Flutterflow right away, or we want to go and do it, but they haven't tested that idea or moved fast, like you were saying.
And quite frankly, it just takes a little bit longer to build. Like I'm a big believer of Flutterflow, all like 10x's. You could 10x faster than like complete code development. But also like I'm a big believer that like it comes with a learning curve. You really have to learn Firebase a good bit or some sort of database structuring. Whereas like quite frankly, I really enjoyed getting our idea off the ground with Adala with their internal database. I mean, but at the same time, that internal database comes with down the road hurdles that you have to think about, like increase of costs because they're starting to control actions, right? Like increase of I mean, it's not built by Google, right? So like, there's some speed things too, but yeah, like also you have to equate in their learning curve too. So, but it comes at the end of the day, right? Like your ideas, your product, your startup, your side hustle, it's your baby. And if you're willing to do anything for it, go learn, right? Like just start clicking. That's my approach to building. It's like literally sign up, create a test app, and just start building things. Try to break it, try to understand why it broke. And that really helped me with Flutterflow.
I love it. I love it. We got a couple questions. How to build a marketing app the easy way. Facts, tell us a little bit more about it. I'm seeing that there's a couple questions to it. So best website to build an app. So I think you're asking maybe what's the best, I think probably web app that you're thinking about building, maybe perhaps how to build a marketing app with easy way. Yeah. So if there's Thomas, I've got my two that I want to say. What would you suggest if someone's trying to create mobile app? We have very sparse details. What would you do? An easy way to get started. What would you suggest?
On a mobile app, you said, or a desktop app?
I'm gonna go. I think this is probably gonna be like. I think this is just a mobile web app. So I'm thinking more. Yeah, not a full.
Depends on the product. Honestly, it really kind of does. Like you could actually do some really cool SaaS products on like Retool or Bubble, in my opinion, right? But like if you're really kind of it really kind of just comes back to the product and what you're trying to build. But I've really enjoyed the fact that Flutterflow did come out with their desktop builds as well too, and we're actually currently building Pro U Sports for the desktop app itself, or for like a web browser as well as Mac and all of that.
Love it. Okay, so we're getting a little bit more clarification. He's talking about mobile app. So okay, so I mean, I'm not sure how you feel about it. Some use app wrappers, right? So they'll use like Glide or something like that, but it has a lot of limitations, right? Especially if you try to do wrappers like that. And some people have trouble depending if they're doing it either using another platform to wrap it, if they get accepted into the store. I'm going to lean more towards probably, Flutterflow, but I'm going to do a caveat. Because if it's an app like, if you're trying to create a gaming app, I'd probably do something with a gaming engine like BuildBox. I wouldn't build the same things for Flutterflow BuildBox. So,
exactly. That's why it comes down to the product itself. Like sometimes, you want to do an internal app, and things like Glide could be good for that. I mean, there's so many out there, but I have always steered clear of wrappers of any kind. It just adds an extra hurdle to the equation. I was a big fan of Bubble for what they do with web apps. They're kind of like quasi king of that approach. But quite frankly, I did not like the way you would have to wrap it and have everything on one screen. It affected our speed, our buildability. We quickly next any type of wrapper for our product.
Love it. Yep. And yeah, like you said, the functionality, what does it mean for yours? And I love to hear it. Okay, before we go over to Flutterflow, Buildbox, what I would say, oh, two things. Thomas, I love what you were saying earlier. I think Adalo has one of the best explainer documents about relations and understanding one-to-one and one-to-many relations.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Like it literally
it's one of the best.
I had zero database experience whatsoever going into my experiences with Adalo, and I left it with like fully understanding how the database, the back end actually is connected to the front end, relational things, right? Like
Yeah.
it was incredibly it was an incredible build experience to say the least. I learned so much. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great. I would like to do a quick shout out to BuildBox. I don't use them that often, but I think their onboarding building video games is probably second to none. I've never seen such a great way to introduce someone to the idea of how to build. It's a game in itself to start using BuildBox. If anyone wants to just see like great onboarding, they are so good at this. Just as an example. Now, going over to Flutterflow, and we're going to be talking about a couple things that they just added, especially Thomas, just like how you alluded to. Now they have the web version as well with 3.0 that's launching. Tell me about now when you jumped into Flutterflow, you were talking about that learning curve. Let's go there. What happened? How did you feel when you were starting to use Flutterflow?
I mean, yeah, quite frankly, the biggest hurdle was not like the interface, right? Like literally creating screens or anything like that. Cause I come from Webflow and a lot of it is similar. But I think the biggest thing was learning Firestore, the non-relational database, just learning the collections and buckets and or documents and sub collections. I'd say the biggest thing you should do is kind of just like again, like poke around, sign up, break things, and that's like how I learned. That's how I quickly learned how to build Firebase or Firestore, bring in our data. Because again, like here's a crazy thing, like we purchase data, right? We purchase sports data from a highly reputable sports data provider. We stopped scraping, so no one come after me anymore. Um, we get our data, we get our news sources through paid licensing, we get our headshots, paid licensing, all that. We still don't have like servers or anything. We bring it all into Airtable first, right? Like that's our internal product, our internal database where we transpose things, we really get things on a granular level, and then we spit it out to Firestore through low code connectivity tools like we actually use Make, which is formerly Integromat, but there's all sorts of tools out there. But my aha moment of like, oh, I could build this thing was making sure like my data is there, right? Like making sure my data gets in the Firestore. And the second I spent like an hour just trying to figure out like, here's my data. How do I get it on the screen? Like the second like that first number came through, I'm like, oh my God, nothing's gonna stop me now because everything else I needed, right? So in terms of what Flutterflow has to offer, I'm like, the second I saw like that 370 yards come in on that blank screen from my Airtable, which was connected through, all sorts of means, I'm like, game over. Like I learned how to do the hard part. Now it's the easy part.
I love that.
Did I answer your question?
I think so. That makes sense to me. Let me get more details because that makes sense. Well, how much were you into the documentation, and how much were you just like, hey, I'm going to use a template, or I'm going to start from scratch in Flutterflow? What was some of your process to feel good about when you were delving into the world?
Their documentation's incredible. It's good. I'm a YouTube guy, right? That's why I kind of like my guy is doc all day, right? Like I definitely prefer to watch Flutterflow's YouTubes about how to connect to Apple Store or anything like that. But they also have great documentation. But quite frankly, I don't like going the template route because it's great for people like learning the structure of columns and containers and rows and stacks, like the structure of it all. But it also kind of gets in the way a little bit. Like my very first method into like learning Flutterflow was quite literally I just like would whiteboard like a screen of like what our player profile looks like, ooh, I need this, I need Derrick Henry to say Alabama on one side and Tennessee on the other side, right? Like let's do that first, let's figure out how that's connected. And then through like a doc reference, I'm like, okay, what's a doc reference? Let's YouTube that, right? Like it was all about the root of what I needed to show on that screen, and then like the UI UX would develop on top of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
As opposed to
Yeah.
trying to make like a template kind of, that was my personal flavor. Every one kind of learns a little bit differently. Templates are great, especially if it's really in line with your product, right? Like I think I saw Flutterflow have a newer template of like on the marketplace of like a hotel search or something. Like if that's like kind of in line with your product with geolocations and availability and stuff, like that's perfect for you. So but for me it was quite literally like, what's the root thing I need to be shown? And then I literally learned how to connect that dot.
I love it. I love it. Did you, once you were doing that, I think the question I have is, did you first spec it out in something like Figma visually, or did you just go into Flutterflow and start doing that? How did you work the visual? Because you were saying, let me think about functionality, I believe you were, and then go into the UI UX. Tell me about that. Did you do it in Flutterflow? Did you do it in Figma first?
So yeah, quite frankly, I bushwhacked at the beginning, but now I definitely use Figma. I actually use Adobe XD, but it's Figma, Sketch. It's the same thing. It saves us so much time of like what's on our product roadmap, right? Like obviously, our users want like fantasy games, right? So like let's whiteboard it first, like quite literally like a whiteboard, like draw the rectangle, y'all draw all the avatar, and then we would go over to Adobe XD, literally spec it out, just because it's faster, to be honest with you. And then I just replicate it on Flutterflow. But quite frankly, this is just so fast. A lot of your ideation on how it would work and like how it would structure and look like kind of can come from straight building itself too, which is just incredible because coded the traditional way of doing that's you have to have something, whereas like these visual aids of like Flutterflow, it actually you could actually do it all in app.
Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Sketch, anything like that.
Mhm.
I like what you were mentioning too. I think it just depends on like how fast you can work and what makes you comfortable to move quickly to that next destination.
Yeah, I would just say consistency is huge too, right? Like we had a hard problem with, so we have player cards. That's kind of like our value prop is like there's this visual representation of the player. Like it's his headshot with his name underneath it, his NFL team behind him as a logo, and this college team on the top left. That is like our brand essentially. We had a hard time like rebuilding that everywhere we would go, especially with like responsiveness, and consistency is very important when it comes to this, right? Like use the same type of heading, use the same type of design throughout. And that's where like Sketch and Figma and XD could really play a great factor in all that. And fun fact is we actually use Banner Bear for these player cards. I love
Wow.
Banner Bear. We came across Banner Bear this summer. For those of you that don't know what Banner Bear is, um, quite frankly, it just generates images through like a database or through certain elements, right? So a real world example of this is like we generate that player card as a flattened image. So it will load faster. Our marketing team can use it. It doesn't do multiple queries or anything like that. It's just quite frankly a flattened, optimized image of that player. We Those are auto generated every time that player trades. It gets traded. Um, all sorts of things. Like Banner Bearer is one of our favorite tools, and we're actually starting to implement it into our social media marketing too, so we could automate social media even more.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. I've never, that's such a great use case for it. Huh. That is awesome. Um, man, so many good nuggets with this. Remember in the comment section, let us know, where are you right now? Are you at the idea phase? Are you thinking about changing platforms? Are you thinking about really working on the UI UX? Tell us in the comment section what you're doing and why. Also, too, as we're going into this, and thank you so much for your time. We just have just a few more minutes with you, if you don't mind, Thomas.
Yeah.
Um, this is we want to connect this last part because you've shown us the journey. We're going through this. You have such a great background of all these different things you got to be involved with, different companies, understanding marketing, all of these things. Let's tie this together with branding and what you've been doing with ProU and thinking about the where branding or what people are thinking about the look and feel of the brand. Tell me a little bit about how important that is or how that's changed over time. Could you talk about
Yeah.
that brand? Yeah.
I mean, that's quite frankly everything. I think one thing that has helped us stand out is we try to be extremely clear on messaging, try to be professional on execution on like actual design elements, but really like copywriting, like know your one liner, know your problem you're solving. Like that's branding too. I mean, I, as the founder, am part of the brand. You have to really just like dive into your industry and really just come out of it like 2 years later as like a true expert in your industry through connecting, through listening, through posting on LinkedIn, right? Like that's a your company's brand early on is essentially you as the founder. And that's a big thing that I try to preach people when I talk to other startups is like immerse yourself in the industry, right? So say like you might be going into like music tech, right? Like where you might have like this cool platform where like you can follow your favorite artists or something, right? Like dive straight into it, connect as much as possible with it, and then like post on LinkedIn, follow people. Like that is as much as your startup's brand as anything else. And then just like another part is too is like don't forget about social media. Like quite frankly, we don't tell anybody, investors, which I want to say one point on investing after this, but like we don't tell anyone we're a mobile app. We tell everyone we're a sports media ecosystem, right? Where we have a mobile app, we have a platform online, but we also have all these social media brands. We have Auburn in the pros on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. We have Ohio State in the pros on Instagram. Like we have all of these micro social channels that are a part of ProU's brand that we leverage for inbound marketing. We leverage for just validation on ProU itself, the brand. You build your brand the more you share it, right? And quite frankly, social media has been incredible for us on that opportunity. Investors love that.
Love it. Love it. And that you said that last part with investors, you were going to come back
Yeah.
to that
And I
component
just
too.
want to be clear, like I think your audience should know this too, right? Like you don't have to chase investors, right? Like you could bootstrap your way into revenue, into a great side hustle. You could nowadays you see bootstrap companies that sell for $1 billion. It's just a crazy world out there. But we, as a consumer sports leisure app, we decided it was great to leverage our traction and to build as fast as possible, get even more users, to become even more of a household name. That's why we're chasing investment. And I was really, I never told it. You start to really learn how pitches go early on because you literally pitched 50, 100, 200 people when you're raising money. And you learn early on what you should say and what you shouldn't just off of visual feedbacks, cues, off what they're giving you when they ask you questions. And for the longest time, I would not mention anything about our tech stack. I would say we have this robust thing that I personally built. I'm the technical founder and it's great, blah, 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 blah. And I move on. Right. And that's fine. But like they want to know how you're going to spend their money. And they don't like the fact that you're going to go blow it on not having zero validation, right? Like going and like building the next version that maybe people don't want. Like you don't want to waste their money. So quite frankly, I started telling these investors, I'm like, hey, we use low code, no code technology. And it just like I started to see that they cared about that. They wanted to learn more about that. They actually know a good bit about that. And it's actually becoming a sexy play for these pre-seed investors because they know you're not going to waste their money, because of that rapid agile development. So quite frankly, it's been an awesome experience saying like, hey, we actually have everything in house, right? We build it, I build it, and I'm faster than any of my competitors. I literally turned on like a trivia game in our app within like 2 days, right? Like that's the power of low code, no code technology. Also, shout out to Flutterflow's hackathon, which gave me the idea. So
Nice, 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 nice. Love it, love it, love it. That's That's incredible to hear. And I like how you're giving a lot of different perspective because some people might be afraid to mention that they're using no code or low code right now.
Yeah.
So that's a really good perspective. So real quick at the end, let's talk about it. What's on the agenda for the next 6 to 9 months? What's going to be happening with ProU?
Yeah. So we have some things that I would just say follow ProU on like
Yep.
LinkedIn or download the app. We have some really great announcements coming up in the next 60 days, 60 to 90 days that will just be mind blowing to a lot of users, to just knowing where we're at on our roadmap. But quite frankly, from what I can tell, is we're going to expand into multiple sports. We are becoming the go-to player to fan connection, right? Like we're going to start onboarding players to allow them to speak to their fans, to basically become ProU verified, which is really exciting for us. But just continuing the user growth, right? Like we have tens of thousands of users right now, and we're growing by over 50 a day. Like, and the best part is like our costs are roughly $1 per new user, per new app user, right? And so some of the things that you're going to start seeing on announcement side is peer partnerships. We're going to be getting our first dollars through recurring revenue, which really excites us because we're really good at spending money, and now it's time to learn how to make money. And I know a really good friend of mine that is highly reputable in the state of Alabama. He's built incredible companies. He's like, the faster you can shorten your time from existence to making money, just the better, right? Just the better, especially in the rough waters of the economy and all that. Like if you want to pursue investment, pursue the dollar. So yeah,
Mhm.
we're excited to share some news about that.
Love it, love it, love it. Remember, everybody, check out pro-u.com. Make sure you connect with Thomas. We're going to be putting all of the socials for ProU in the description down below. And also, too, Thomas, we try to ask all of our guests. Maybe it's some kind of you never know, serendipity. What are you looking for? Is there anything that you're like, hey, if anyone knows about X, let me know, or reach out how our community can help you? Anything that you're thinking about?
Yeah, I'd say our marketing, our email marketing absolutely sucks. It just sucks. I really like, that's a big play for us this fall. We want to automate some drip campaigns and all that. And I'm spread a bit thin, and I'd love to know if anyone is a guru in that or an expert in that. Currently on SendGrid, but I know there's a lot of awesome platforms out there, and just would love to start researching and start executing too.
Love it. This is we try to run different challenges for our community, and this is a new initiative, but we always talk about if people have skills, share their portfolio and show you, the person that wants or needs help, that they can do it in examples. So
Yeah.
remember, everyone in the Build With Me family, if you're going to reach out to Thomas, you already know me. Do not just say, hey, I need a job. You better come with your portfolio,
Yeah,
show what you've been working on for Thomas if you're outreaching.
absolutely. Yeah.
Um, this is good stuff, man. So again, thank you so much for the time. Thank you for being here and just sharing your knowledge. And we can't wait to see what you're going to be doing in the future. So thanks again, man.
Doc, I appreciate everything about this.